The world is full of exciting and exotic animals, some dangerous, some adorable, but all interesting in their own right. Exotic pet owners seem to have a particular interest in the bright and colorful creatures that you might have to flip a few rocks to see. The most notorious, and arguably most sought after, is the newly discovered and ultra-rare blue crayfish. Today, we're going to take a look at the most interesting things about the blue crayfish, so stick around till the end to see what these little guys are all about. First on our list is the fact that they were discovered so recently. May of 2020 feels like yesterday to some of us, but it is important to note that this was when the blue crayfish was first discovered. These colorful creatures were discovered on May 19th during an expedition in Monroe County, which was led by Laura S. Hughes. Laura had just spent years searching for this species and finally managed to track them down just last year. Laura and her team actually found a small population of the species, confirming its existence as Ohio's most colorful and, more importantly, rarest species of crayfish. The next step for the team is to document the total population of these guys and to determine their conservation status. The next update is the number of states they've been spotted in. The blue crayfish is known as an Ohioan discovery, but they could just as well have been discovered in a number of different states. They've been spotted in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. That's a whole lot of states that host these super rare little creatures. According to the experts, the Ohio River has been a barrier for these crayfish, which means that they must have made their way over state lines before the formation of the river. This would have happened before the continental glaciation and formation of the river, which happened around 2 million years ago. They did a good job of hiding from humans for that amount of time. Next on our list is the eating habits of the blue crayfish. Crayfish are some of the easiest animals to keep as pets, thanks to the fact that they have no qualms eating just about anything and everything they can catch. This might make them sound aggressive, but remember, they're only about 3 inches in size, so not threatening at all. When kept as pets, crayfish love blanched vegetables like carrots and spinach, but don't even mind the taste of fish food and sometimes even algae wafers. These critters are notoriously messy though, so expect to spend some time cleaning up after them once they finish their spinach. These eating habits might make them sound like they're a bad idea for a tank, which is already populated with small fish. But thankfully, due to their size and speed, they really aren't threatening in the slightest, even to other fish. Most fish can easily outrun a crayfish, so even if they try anything, they won't get far. The worst case scenario is that you end up having a wound up crayfish since they can't eat their tank mates. Next on our list is the habits of the blue crayfish. While we don't know too much about them right now, we do know that the blue crayfish is a very active animal and they don't like spending much time burrowing at all. This makes the fact that they weren't discovered for so long even stranger, as they weren't even hiding. The blue crayfish have always been known to spend most of their time exploring and keeping their tanks clean by eating the algae and musk which sticks to the sides of it, much to the delight of their owners. This does come with one side effect of them needing a lot of space though, so prospective owners beware. But I'm sure that most people who decide that they want to adopt an ultra rare crayfish aren't doing it on the cheap, or at least we hope they aren't. Next up are the abilities of the blue crayfish. What sets the Ohioan blue crayfish apart from other species is their burrowing capabilities. Technically, blue crayfish aren't really that rare at all, and can be picked up at some local pet stores. But the crayfish that you'll find there are purely aquatic animals and usually are found in Florida. The Ohioan crayfish, however, is a different story as it displays some impressive digging skills. In fact, they are such accomplished diggers that they can sometimes dig up to 6 feet underground. Now that's pretty deep to say the least, and there's no saying how far they could dig if they really felt like they need to escape. Unfortunately, this is one of those things about the blue crayfish that is difficult to tell because they are such a new discovery that it's going to take a while before the full potential of their digging capabilities is displayed. Next up on the list is the crayfish's relationship with lobsters. Crayfish are actually genetically quite similar to lobsters, albeit on a much smaller scale. The crayfish can actually draw a lot of comparisons to a lobster, one of them being the ultra rare blue variants. That's right, there's also an ultra rare breed of lobster lobsters with an entirely blue look. These lobsters are so rare though that the most recent estimates for the rarity of the blue lobster sits at 1 in 200 million. That means that, on average, you would have to catch 200 million lobsters before you caught a blue one for yourself. Lobsters though, unlike crayfish, are constantly being caught by fishermen for trade and to be made into meals at high-end restaurants, whereas that interest doesn't really exist with the crayfish. This probably explains why it's taken so long to find a blue crayfish and why we already are well aware of the existence of blue lobsters. Next on our list, we have the first discovery of the blue crayfish. While we've been talking about the blue crayfish as a 2020 discovery, it's actually been found before, albeit by YouTubers and not crayfish experts. YouTube channel Brave Wilderness documented the discovery in their new video, New Species Found, Rare Blue Crayfish. In the video, the team actually managed to get on camera the first documented and recorded time that a blue crayfish had been found in the wild. This wasn't even taken further than the discovery shows though, as the video was made for entertainment purposes, meaning that after the cameras turned off, that was it. No scientific evaluation, no research into the creatures, just basically a cool clip of the crayfish coming out of the water. That's why the discovery was largely discredited by professionals, and why the video hasn't been proof for the existence of these creatures, which seems like a really good call considering the nature of the content. Next up, we have the habitat of the blue crayfish. The blue crayfish, like all crayfish, require quite specific habitat conditions to really survive. They are sensitive to changes in groundwater and live in hillside springs. This still begs the question, could there have been blue crayfish populations lost to man-made changes in natural waters? Since these creatures are small and prove difficult to find, there could easily have been colonies of them living in very specific waters. With their very specific conditions required for their life, perhaps all of a sudden they just lost their regular circumstances and died out. While it's a grim thought, it serves as a reminder that the destruction of nature is a terrible thing, and we should really be more apprehensive as a species before we end up making an animal extinct before we even discover it. Up next on our list is the importance of where the blue crayfish were found. So, we already know that the blue crayfish have been around since before the Ohio River, but how appropriate is the habitat that they were found in really for them? Well, it's actually another worrying thought, as blue crayfish are usually hiding in hillside springs and seeps, which puts them at a greater risk of chances to groundwater conditions, something that they notoriously hate. It seems to me like it's about time that these tiny little creatures moved out, since they've spent the last 2 million years living in a habitat that might one day reject them. These guys are actually relatively at risk here, but since we don't know the actual population of the blue crayfish, it's kind of hard to say if this is even really much of a problem. For now though, it's good to approach with caution, as we really don't know enough about this tiny little critter. Finally, we have the fact that we really don't know much about them at all. If you haven't gathered already, the blue crayfish is so rare that it wasn't discovered until very recently, so we are relatively in the dark when it comes to this species. There's so many things that we don't know, so many quirks that might develop, so many to learn that we are completely in the dark about, that it's not often that as human beings we find a species we aren't familiar with, or at least could find information about. So what's exciting about this time is that the endless possibilities are, well, endless. It's a thrilling prospect that we honestly might never get the chance to experience again. So remain curious while you can, because we inevitably know everything there is to know about the blue crayfish. Also, if you're an Ohio native, you can help with the efforts of the scientists that are researching these guys by getting out there and having a look for yourself. Flip over some rocks and search for them. We know they're out there, and if there's something that you're interested in, it might be worth taking the time to just have a look for them. And if you do find anything, let the researchers know. You could become a part of the history of these little creatures. Well, that's it for today's lists. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.